As a retired Coast Guard officer, I've been watching the Deepwater Horizon Incident and how it plays out with a certain degree of interest, even though, to me it's over 1,000 miles away from my home here in Kentucky, but I'm still very interested in how it's going to work out. It's especially interesting now since we've pretty much entered into what you call the finger-pointing phase, where everybody involved is trying to point the finger at everybody else and claim it's not their fault. I mean, we're also into the heads will roll phase right now, congressional hearings. Well, while it may be in vogue right now to want to pillory BP, the Mineral Management Service, the Department of Interior, and maybe even my favorite government organization, the U.S. Coast Guard, I think there's a little more to this that you have to think about. What this spill is really indicative of is a much bigger problem, and that's the problem that the United States is 100% hooked on oil. I'll admit it, I'm hooked. As a country, we're hooked as bad on oil as some junkie shooting up heroin in a back alley. And just like the heroin addict, we'll do whatever it takes to get our next fix. Well, in this case, whatever it takes is drilling in 5,000 feet of water in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, any type of activity that involves heavy machinery, there's a certain degree of inherent risk involved. Well, when you start talking about taking that heavy machinery out in the middle of the ocean and going almost a mile under the surface of the water, now you're talking about certainly a very inherently risky activity. Now, people want to have you believe that they can control everything that goes on there. You got to be kidding me. There are so many variables when you're doing something like this that I seriously doubt we'll ever have total control over it. Now, I'm fairly convinced that the people who are in charge here were fully aware of what all the risks were, and they either downplayed them or ignored them, or a little bit of both. And what they did was hope, and that's what it was, hope that nothing bad happened on their watch. Well, something bad has happened. This case is far worse than the Exxon Valdez, which I've always considered the standard since 1989 in U.S. oil spill disasters. You already have 11 fatalities here, and the Exxon Valdez, although it was big, it was finite at around, 11.9 million gallons of oil. Now, that might sound like a lot, but we have no idea how much this thing has put into the Gulf of Mexico. You hear talk of using dispersants. All dispersants are going to do is just that, disperse and hide the oil. The damage is already done. But getting back to my original point, until the United States is able to get off this oil habit, you can expect things like this probably going to happen at somewhat regular intervals. You might not be able to predict the exact time or place, but it's going to happen. So, as I said a little earlier, while it may be popular to blame BP, Transoceanic, Halliburton, Department of Interior, and yes, even the Coast Guard, I think if you really want to know who should bear most of the responsibility for this, next time you're filling up your car, truck, or SUV at the gas pump, take a good hard look at your reflection right there, and I think you'll know who really is responsible for this. Thanks for listening.